I can't do anything for Criterion Month because there's only one thing I want, and Santa's going to bring me it, or I will burn down my motherfucking house. I don't play tough to get, I just play tough to get off.
Welcome into Film Tank, the weekly podcast that covers both new and classic cinema. On this episode of Film Tank, we discuss the 1981 horror classic, which is Sam Raimi's The Evil Dead. If you would like to get in touch with Film Tank, you can always email us at filmtankshow@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Film Tank Show. And you can listen to all of our episodes on our website, filmtankshow.com, or on iTunes. And now, here are your hosts, Nick Cheney, Toussaint Egan, and myself, Alex Diekman. Hey there, everybody, and welcome in to episode 169 of Film Tank. I know, the whole 69 thing gets me every time. And apparently Nick, too. Nick Cheney here with us, as per usual.
I'm sorry, go to somebody else.
Okay. Toussaint Egan, also here.
Nice.
Okay. And a resurrection has been
69
brought...
Erection. See what you did there.
Kenny's not even listening. Our old friend Kenny has dropped by.
Yay! The Kenny is back!
The
One of
Kenny.
the founding fathers.
I'm back.
Yeah.
Guess
So,
who's back?
A lot more hair, a lot more beard, a lot more dad bod.
Yay.
I'm back.
You're rocking it.
What's up?
I
That's
have
okay.
an erection for some reason.
You've been working out, right?
Oh, no.
No, that's not what you say. You say that, and then people compliment you, and you feel better.
Sure.
You've been working out. No, I just look thinner because of the beard. It's fine.
I've been working out.
You look great.
Good for you.
You guys are
Yeah.
so fucking stupid.
Yeah, that's true. So, it is that time of year, the October horror kind of time when Kenny
Resurrected.
I roll out of bed.
arises as every now and then from time to time, since me and Kenny hang out outside of Film Tank, believe it or not, I'll just kind of throw him something his way and say, hey, we're doing an episode on this, and he'll be like, oh, that sounds like fun. And then October shows up, and I'm like, hey, we're doing an episode on the Rob Zombie Halloween film, and he's like, oh, I'll be there. It's like, oh, I guess
yeah.
he didn't really want to do that Suicide Squad episode. He's like, no.
Well,
No.
no.
Nobody did,
Yeah.
but that's all right.
Oh.
And Rob Zombie's Halloween movies are great.
Yeah.
They actually are, yes, I would agree. But anyways, it is October. It is time to talk about some horror films on Film Tank, and believe it or not, Kenny is here.
Indeed, I am.
So welcome back.
Thanks for inviting me.
The door is always open,
I'm excited.
especially during October.
Sure. Sure.
The door is not literally open, though. Like, please
Yes.
do not come inside this lovely... That was not a sex reference!
It wasn't.
Okay, Bill Cosby. It's fine.
I am not a crook.
What?
Why are we talking about Richard Nixon?
Why are all these things just dogpiling
That's
to
all right.
one another?
That's all right. Kenny's back. That's why all this shit's just coming out right
Yeah.
now. We're going to start talking about semen again. It's
Oh,
going to be
boy.
fine.
The switchboard is just like sparking.
The switchboard.
It's on
Why
fucking,
are we
it's on
going to
fucking
talk
fire.
about Navy people?
God damn it.
God damn it. I'm sorry. Anyway,
You mean you guys don't normally talk about this stuff?
no, we don't.
I mean, yes. Well, really, it's just me and Nick having conversations because Toussaint doesn't really pay attention during our episodes.
Yes, I do.
It's funny because it's half true.
Yeah, it's half true, but I do pay attention.
He does pay attention when he's talking. But
Ooh, that's not true at all.
See,
But-
you got to learn to lace these truth with slightly charming joke. Like how I do it sometimes.
Yeah,
oh, okay.
I
Sorry.
appreciate that.
Mr.
You're
Charm
welcome.
over here, Nick.
Oh,
just
thank you.
telling you how it goes. That's fine.
I just want us to all get along
I'm sure you
while I make fun of everybody. 'Cause that's so much to ask.
son of a bitch. So today, on our first episode of this lovely October season, which we're going to
Spooktober.
or Spooktober, we're going to talk about a film and then decide how many Babadooks we want to give it.
I like it. I like it.
Blast from the past there.
Yeah, it was.
only true Film Tank listeners will know that reference. So,
Oh boy.
we're probably going to hit on at least one or two more horror films in this October month. We're definitely going to be doing the new Halloween, which is coming out the end of October. Mm-hmm. And we're going to be doing a film next week that is not a horror film.
What?
But we'll probably do
Looks
another
like
one
it.
in there. Well, yeah, we'll see. There are very not great reviews about Tom Hardy's Venom so far, which we're going to be talking about next week, but that can wait for that episode. This episode, we're talking about the original Evil Dead, which was really the film that put Sam Raimi on the map. For those of you who don't know Sam Raimi, he is the guy who directed the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, and also really cut his teeth doing the Evil Dead films. So this film, that was released in 1981 and stars Bruce Campbell and a bunch of other white people that you probably will never hear of, surrounds 5 friends who travel to a cabin in the woods, where they unknowingly release flesh-possessing demons. Also, I found interesting that this film was rated NC-17.
Huh.
Yeah, but I mean, it was back before.
I was going to say, this is a weird time for the rating
yeah,
system.
there was no PG-13,
Yeah.
so like I feel like everything was out of whack and out of proportion. And I honestly watching it, I can understand that. As far as back then, like this is a disgusting movie in a lot of ways.
It's just weird to see that, because other than like Showgirls, it's really hard to get an NC-17 rating.
Well, I think we think it is, but if we genuinely look back, Texas Chainsaw was NC-17. So it was very common for horror, but I feel like because it was common for horror, it wasn't that shocking, so to speak. Whereas we know about how like a Midnight Cowboy was famously rated X because it showed a penis. Like, that is something we know so many years later, and think it's very silly so many years later, but because of how ridiculous that decision was. Whereas things like the Texas Chainsaw and this one even, I think what really comes down to, not to randomly go off on a tangent, but...
Please do.
With Texas Chainsaw and something like this, especially in this movie, shot in the 4:3 ratio, it looks utterly, I wouldn't say realistic, but docudrama-like. Like it doesn't try to stage it as this tableau-esque horror film that a lot of people were used to. It is very much of the grindhouse exploitation nature,
Definitely.
but bringing a much more sick sensibility than even most grindhouse films were going, because they were more interested in being salacious rather than disgusting. So, anyway.
Okay. Well, that being said, since you are already just giving us all this information, and this is a film that you suggested, Nick, why don't you start us off and tell us about your feelings about The Evil Dead, especially since you've become a horror aficionado over the last couple of years.
I have, yes. I very much enjoy this movie. I think it's fantastic. I think this is one of the best shot low-budget films ever made. I mean...
I'd agree with that.
It's kind of like, looking back at it, you almost think it's purposefully low-budget when it wasn't. It was literally just one of those things where he was not a proven director, and so, of course, he had to make, quote-unquote, cabin-in-the-woods type movies where you had a single setting, a cast of non-actors for the time.
I mean, also, too, it's since this is a series that has spawned sequels and a TV show that went on recently, it's pretty easy, I think, to forget that this film came out almost 40 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's funny because you even look at the origins here of the character of Ash Wednesday, and technically he's not really a character here.
He's a dork.
He's a non-entity, very much. He is quite literally the final girl in this film for no reason other than it's kind of the most random character to choose, I think, because... I mean, not the most random, but throughout the movie, there's no real clear protagonist, and he just becomes one by default, which only makes it slightly more comical and tragic to be in his place.
I do actually love the idea that Ash is the last man standing in this film.
Yeah.
I think it's actually a very Hitchcock way of making film, where the person who's perceived as the main character is bumped off earlier in the film, and I fucking love
Agreed.
it.
I mean, our quote-unquote main character, if we're going to call him that, because I think we can after we've seen the entire film, but is a person who started out in the back seat just looking at the map, you know. And,
I mean, the guy who's looks like Han Solo
Scotty or
is
something.
clearly the person who is the main character throughout the first act of the film, and then he is...
And if you ask, like, any Evil Dead fan, I would think... Obviously, some will, because horror fans are nuts, and I can understand why. But in general, most people would probably fail to actually remember his name, because he's nothing compared to what Ash becomes. Overall, though, I think this film is wonderful. I think the effects on display are so fun. Like, I know that sounds almost like a cop-out, because if I'm saying that, then I'm almost slightly admitting that they're not as scary as they probably were back then. Although there is some pretty good scares, I think. This is, in my opinion, some of the better uses of jump scares, because the jump scares kind of come from a place of, I would say, understandable. Like, the Deadites are kind of like fucking gremlins in a way, as far as they just like to fuck with, their people.
Speaking of fuck, there is a tree branch.
There is that, and we will
cannot take no for an answer.
No.
Question. I know that this film wasn't the film where the name Deadites was introduced. Was it the second film or the third film?
I feel like it was probably the third. It's been a while since I've seen the second.
Right.
I don't remember.
Everything most people know about Ash, and I would say the world at large, I feel like comes from a third.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, even the name of the book, the Necronomicon.
Necronomicon, they don't name drop that
it's just
until
the Book
later
of the
on.
Dead in this one,
Which technically is another name for the Necronomicon, but they don't really go balls deep into the mythos until the third, which is ironic because the third is technically just a romp in the past.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, it's weird how the most trivial entry in the trilogy is also the one where they actually stick to a credible, ongoing narrative.
I would say that
Kind of makes sense, though. Actually.
No, I mean, I totally think it works.
Yeah.
I would say that Army of Darkness is probably the one that has the most mainstream penetration outside of
Absolutely.
like horror.
Army of
yeah.
Darkness is really not a horror film.
Yeah.
It is a
Not at all.
really fun romp in which he gets to go back and shoot, what's his name? Ray
Fiennes?
No, I was going to say the guy who did the stop motion, Harryhausen or whatever. Harryhouse, whatever. Yeah. Like those type
and Ray Fiennes.
And Ray Fiennes. But he gets to mess with those kind of creations while he fucks them up and also turns into his, one-liner delivery vehicle.
Yeah.
I mean...
It's a revisionist Arthurian comedy horror.
Yeah, and if you look at something like that compared to this, nowhere in this movie would we be able to insert a joke like Ash in the third movie trying not to say the N-word. Like,
wow.
What? Yeah, that's a moment that happens in the Army of Darkness. Remember, he can't remember what the password was, but he knows it starts with N, and it's a weird word. So he tries a lot of different words, and then finally he just looks around to see if anyone's around, and then he basically tries to cough the N-word to see if that's the password.
I did not remember that. Wow.
Oh, it's actually one of the funniest parts of the movie.
Damn. Okay, I'll have to rewatch that now.
I know, but that's how much this series...
I mean, it's a good movie. I missed that the first time I watched it.
No, seriously, it's one of the funniest jokes ever.
Yeah.
But that joke just shows you how far the series goes. But as a starting point, this movie is never not just super fun. The effects are great. Even the dorky effects outside the cabin, like the thunder and lightning, I never once watched one of those and think, okay, that just dated this movie. I actually just think I'd rather have more movies be like that, do this kind of practical effect of thunder and lightning as a mood setter, because I miss when weather had an actual
presence.
Presence in a movie that wasn't just CGI and basically fake.
Since you're talking about effects, I'll just bring up my thought on this film, which is...
I'm pretty much done with my opening.
Oh, no. So you want me just to go into mine? Well,
if you want.
First thing, I can. Thank you. First things first, I will say that the practical effects in this movie are absolutely fantastic.
Oh, yeah. Over the top as hell.
Oh, yeah, which is totally fine.
Fantastic.
But actually pretty well done, too. Like some of the transformations here really did give me a not as well done, but did give me a little bit of an American Werewolf in London vibe.
Absolutely.
Which has one of the best transformation horror scenes ever in any film.
And that was a studio movie, so like you kind of understand as far as like, I agree with you basically as far as like this. Yeah.
But this film is doing similar things to what that film and that scene in particular were trying to do, and it just lands really well. I'm not a huge horror fan, and I'm still not, even though some people that are in this room right now think I'm becoming more of a horror film fan, but they're mistaken. At any rate...
Not me.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, thanks, Tucson. At any rate, I actually thought this was quite wonderful. I don't think I would give this like extraordinarily high rating, but at the same time, first pass through, I thought this was a very fun little film that honestly... I think this just shows, just again, that if you can make a good film in a condensed space, you're doing something right. This is a film that doesn't need to be 2 hours and 15 minutes.
No.
It's a nice 28-minute condensed film that shows you what it wants to say and does it well, and then is over. And I thought it pretty much hit all the right notes throughout. The acting here is delightfully bad, in my opinion, and it just lands in a horror film. I mean, you don't need perfect actors to land amazing line deliveries in these kind of roles. You need people to play the parts in these specific films.
Acting in these films, especially this first one, matches the effects, which is something that is never not entertaining to watch, but also... it certainly pushes the suspension of disbelief in your brain. I mean,
which is totally fine.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I actually really, one of the things I really enjoyed about this film. Ash as a character, I actually thought was for the most part brilliant in this film, and that's somebody who knows of the rest of the franchise, but has really seen almost absolutely none of it, other than maybe a trailer here or there. I already mentioned it, but his character being sort of the side character through the first half of the film, I thought was fucking awesome, because the idea of him being this almost mythical figure throughout the series, and then he just is kind of in the background throughout most of this film. Is
even when the
wonderful.
shit hits the fan for the first time, he just stands there staring with his axe and unable to actually do
God
anything.
damn it, that pissed me off so much.
He only becomes this Ash-like figure when he's the last one.
No, but actually, in this superhero day and age that we currently have, this is actually a pretty good origin story. As I think one of if it was Nick or Toussaint or Kenny.
That was Nick.
Okay, it was Nick.
Yeah.
Somebody mentioned while you were watching the movie, but that actually is very much true. And there's just a lot here. The camera work in this film is absolutely just fantastic.
Sure.
So many great shots throughout, and also too, boy, you just see, because the films that we watch in this day and age, you can see that people like J.J. Abrams have totally taken from Sam Raimi and what this film was trying to do, just in the unique camera work that we have. There's specifically one camera shot that starts upside down on Ash's face and then ends up straight ahead of him and then goes towards him after it moves. It's just awesome. And those are the kind of things that can make a film like this that on the outset could just seem like a very run-of-the-mill, low-budget horror film. Just turn it from to, holy shit, this is a really well-made film. And you know what? People need, Hollywood fucking needs this. It really needs people who actually have an imagination. Because just throwing CGI in there and saying, people will like this, it kind of looks like it. That's not going to get it done. And stuff like this, or if you want to go into more of current day and age, something like the Daniels are doing, or Boots Riley or something like that, people who are just creating these things that really do bring the story off the page, are just awesome.
On the topic of just the creative shots that they used in this movie, because that's something I thought about a lot as well and was going to bring up. Specifically, a couple that come to mind. I love the first time Ash goes down in the basement and there's a like a one long take of like
Yeah.
a 360 panorama.
There's a lot of silhouetting going
Sure.
on. Yeah.
That's a fantastic shot, and it's something simple. All they had to do is just spin the camera on and show you the room. You've seen the entire basement,
And it
see what he's up
establishes
against.
the location
Sure.
that they're going to come back to later.
Absolutely. One particular shot when I believe it was the tree root incident with Linda, as she comes, or no,
Son of
Not
a bitch.
Linda, but the other
not
girl.
Linda.
I forget.
Was it?
Because Linda's Ash's
Yes,
girlfriend.
it was the other girl.
I don't remember
Yes,
the other
I can't
two
remember.
names.
It was after Ash attempted to take her to town when they came back,
Yeah.
and like the other three are just standing at the door,
In the
and
silhouette of the light.
coming out
Yes.
from inside
Yeah.
the house, just incredible.
Yeah.
I loved the part when the house started bleeding and
Yeah.
just like the light coming, like the light
light
bulb
bulb,
with the
yeah.
blood coming out of it and the sockets.
The
and
great thing about all those is that that's not a lot of money to make those things happen.
No, and this, you already touched on it. Like, it's the ultimate low budget movie. I love the fact that they filmed a like a mini movie to raise the money for this.
Yeah.
Like, they spent like $90,000, I think I read, shooting like just to try to raise the funds to even get the $350,000 budget that this movie had.
Right.
They shot like this super cheap mini movie just to. It's incredible.
So
all
there's a
of it.
proto film to this.
There's-
That
Yeah,
It's
there's
called
one that's like 30 minutes long, and it was shot
House
on
in the Woods. I want to
something
say.
like that. It
House-
was shot on 16 millimeter, which I would love to see.
Yeah.
Starring Bruce Campbell, who was also in Sam Raimi's first debut film, which was called It's Murder.
I'm just loving this franchise more and more that I'm learning about it.
Does Bruce Campbell show up in any capacity in the Spider-Man series?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Multiple times.
He plays a character. I mean, like an actual, not just a Stanley, whatever. But now I forget what he was. But yes, he does show up.
I think it was either in Spider-Man 1 or 2 when Peter Parker is trying to race from like some crime incident and he's trying to go to Mary Jane's performance. I think it's the second film.
He plays the usher.
He plays the usher. And I was
Yes.
like, please.
I remember that.
Yeah, he was a fucking
It's a
asshole.
great
yeah.
use for him.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess it was like a Stanley, but much better.
He
Oh,
was
okay.
also just as a
Yeah.
it was like he was also the voice of the tutorial guy from Spider-Man 2
That's right.
Yeah.
You're talking about in the video game.
in the video game. Yes.
Look at Tucson. Throwing video game knowledge.
Really quickly,
How
since we're
random.
saying Spider-Man,
Yes.
I just want to say the new trailer dropped for the Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh yeah,
That looks amazing.
yeah, it does.
didn't watch it yet. So I'll have to
Genuinely,
check it out.
like, if I'm saying that, I feel like that means something.
Yeah.
Holy shit. And it's not just because John Mulaney was in there as Spider-Pig, which is, like, literally one of the only things in 2018 that's giving me joy in my life right
Yeah.
now.
I watched his new comedy special on Netflix.
That special is fucking amazing.
Oh my god! And he's talking
So
about the
good.
horse in the hospital. And I was
Yep.
like, I don't really like politics.
If you've seen the Horse in the Hospital skit, you would be cracking up right now. It's so
Yeah.
good. But anyway, just want to say the new Spider-Verse movie, even as a non-superhero convert so far,
I was gonna say you're
So
inching
far.
your way there.
I haven't really got into the Marvel pool yet. I'm mostly only sticking to DC. Oh, now I'm a fanboy.
oh dear.
But that, so far though, that's kind of what do you call it? That's keeping up with what I've been saying, which is that the Spider-Verse movie is going to be an animated film.
Yeah.
It does look amazing though.
Yeah.
Anyway,
So the last thing I'll say before passing it on is something I wanted to mention, which is 2 nights ago I saw a Sam Raimi horror film that I saw in the theater and I hated at the time.
Drag me to hell.
Thank you for stealing my thunder.
I didn't know. Sorry.
Yes.
Shit. I was just guessing.
wait, you rewatched that?
I did not. I recorded it
okay.
the other night because I'm
Yeah.
planning to rewatch it. I absolutely hated it when I saw it in the theater, and this was when it came out, which was 12 years ago.
Well. Yeah, I did not like that movie.
No,
it's fun.
And I am interested to revisit it after watching Evil Dead because
you would-
I'd be more on its wavelength, I think.
I think you'd at least get a kick out of it.
Because when I saw it originally, I knew nothing about Sam Raimi's horror films, and I did not really know what I was in store for. And after the first 30 minutes, I was like, oh, this is a standard horror film. I was in on it, and then it takes a left turn.
No, Sam Raimi
Yeah.
is never not making a comedy. That's my opinion. Like, even if Spider-Man is slightly off of that wavelength, when he makes his horror movies, which in my opinion are good horror movies and can be scary, whatever, he's still never not cognizant of the absurdism going on. And if you watch Evil Dead 2, that has been literally called, for good reason, like the Looney Tunes of horror films. Like, it is as bloody and as gross as anything he's ever done, but in a very slapstick way.
Yeah.
Well, I'm interested to sit down and watch it because the more I think about it, and I haven't watched it again in 12 years or whatever it is since it was in the theater, I get a very Cabin in the Woods feel.
Oh, yeah.
from it,
Before
so-
that was even a thing, yeah. And, I mean, there's a jump scare that revolves around her sneezing at one point, and it's
Yes.
disgusting. But it, like, afterwards you laugh because you feel like an idiot for even thinking that was
But no,
scary.
what's great about that is it the one where she just all the blood runs out
Yeah.
of her nose. What's his name? The guy from the third Ocean's film is
Yeah,
the
the Kevin
banker.
Pollak lookalike.
Yes.
Yes.
And he's like, "Oh my God, did I get any?" Just the way he says it is just awesome.
Yeah.
And that film has a dancing ghost goat towards the end of it, and oh man, it's off the wall.
And that was back when Justin Long was a thing.
Justin Long. I love Accepted.
That was a real name.
Accepted's a real fun movie.
Ask me about my wiener.
That is early Jonah Hill.
It is.
That is like actual fat Jonah Hill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Before he turned into auteur Jonah Hill. He's attempting it. And you
He's
know what?
certainly
and,
attempting
and
it.
you know what? I want to just like give him a shot because he deserves it.
You
I
remember
think
when
so.
the controversy came
Deserves
out? When
controversy?
Like he hasn't
The
had a
con-
shot in Hollywood.
No, hold on. When the controversy came out because TMZ followed him home like one time and he was drunk and then he said the F word, and the F word being the slang for gay people.
Oh, wow.
Whatever. And like, no offense, but that was a bullshit controversy because I say this because he was being completely like, disturbed in his own element.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like he was just trying to whatever.
He's already drunk and
and
disoriented,
he's drunk, whatever.
and now you're prodding
and then
him.
because he said that one word, that's what TMZ ran with. Like
course.
they had no story, but they were following him. And then they basically said, "Look at what Jonah Hill said. He said the whatever."
Yeah.
And he went on. I don't know if it was Kimmel or something, or Jimmy Fallon, whatever. And I'm not saying that you can't milk it for what it is, but he genuinely, like, I don't know, he kind of cried on that show and said, like, I have, and I know that's a bullshit excuse too, but, like, he goes, the fact that I said that does not make it okay, but I was just so caught up in the fact that I didn't think it was fair for me to be followed home, and I said stupid shit. And anyway, that was a controversy for like a good week and a half.
Yeah,
and I just wanted to bring that up.
This isn't like the what's his name? I can't remember his name from Lethal Weapon. He was in
Mel Gibson.
Yeah,
no. This is not like.
This is not.
I'm gonna put the tape recorder on and see how you really feel.
Yeah, I've had this debate with people before, and it's just like, oh, what? Because he got drunk, it's like we should ruin the guy's life. I was like, I think that some of the things that he said, that's not something that you just say off the cuff. Like that feels like it comes from a place of rehearsed mentality. And
Mel
it's just-
Gibson's made his way back.
You made.
Yeah.
Oh, he has.
I'm sure. Yeah, he has.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
seen him in
So-
films.
no,
I'm just saying
No, like
that
directing.
that
He's been
I
back.
fucking remember
Oh,
what
yeah.
he said.
He's thinking he's back.
A lot
Yeah.
of people, a lot of people are with you in the sense that they're kind of baffled by his return.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, just wanted to bring up.
Time
the
heals
old-
all wounds.
doesn't it?
That and Robert Downey Jr.'s endorsement.
He's a dick, though.
Yeah. Harvey Weinstein's not coming back. Kevin Spacey will be back.
You think so?
Yes.
I don't know. I don't feel like we forgive child rapists.
Yeah.
Like I say
you'd
that as a
think.
flip-
You'd think.
No, 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 no.
As
It's-
Roman
it's-
Polanski puts another film
Here's
out
the
this
thing.
year.
Here's the thing. I genuinely say that in the sense that it's not so much that we don't forgive them, but we use them as martyrs so that way we can draw some kind of hard line and allow just as bad people through because at least they didn't do that. Like somebody has to be the shitting whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I could see Spacey sitting this out.
I'm pretty
for
sure
a long
Kenny's
time.
watching The Evil Dead 2 right here.
No, I'm
he's watching-
I'm watching the first one.
Yeah, that's what he's doing. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway,
So,
Does
who wants to go here?
do you want to go or
Sure.
you go?
Yeah, I'll jump in.
Kenny's going to jump in. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the first one, it sits in a really strange place for me because I have grown to love this franchise so goddamn much, like so much, and it just gets better and better as it goes, in my opinion. And it's only reached its pinnacle with the television show that was on Starz, Ash vs. Evil Dead. And
Show deserved better.
it did.
It got 3 seasons.
It did
though.
get 3 seasons.
And I say that
and-
it's just as a television quote-unquote expert. Like, it shouldn't have even gotten that. Just based on ratings and whatnot.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised. And I own all 3 seasons. I love that show.
Yeah.
Continue.
So it's really almost weird to go back and revisit the first film for me. Not that I dislike it, because it's a fantastic movie for all the reasons you guys have already mentioned. It's really, really good, but it almost feels incredibly tame and watered down compared to what you get out of the rest of the franchise, and it's only solely on what we've already discussed that this one survives, in the fact that it did so much with what it was at the time, and because it stands so strongly on its practical effects and just sort of being from the time that it was, it holds up for sure. But that said, Bruce Campbell in this, Alex, I think I mentioned it to you earlier today. I was like, Bruce Campbell was born to play Ash Williams. Going back and watching this isn't really the Ash Williams that you get from the rest of the Evil Dead franchise.
Like he grew into Ash Williams.
He definitely grew big time into what Ash Williams is and what you know Ash Williams as.
I'm interested to know, is Bruce Campbell someone who milks this character?
Oh,
yeah.
fuck yeah.
I mean, it's his claim to fame and the only
Oh.
reason why he... But, like,
But
for
it's
good
also-
reason.
Yeah.
It's,
Like...
it's a role that he's recently retired, like in the wake of Ash vs. the Evil Dead.
Which is fine, but the way Kenny's talking about it gives me the impression that like he found his niche and he's going to ride that
did.
to the grave.
So real quick, last year, I've mentioned on the show before, I love going to Halloween Horror Nights at Universal Studios. Ash vs. Evil Dead had a house at the event
Holy
last
shit,
year.
that's awesome.
And Bruce Campbell was in Orlando doing a book signing on the final event, the final day of the event, and he definitely showed up to play his character in the house.
Really?
Yes, he did. So
Wow.
he
He
absolutely
is such a cool
he
motherfucker.
absolutely fucking milks this character. He
Yeah.
loves it. He lives it. He is fucking Ash Williams, and I love that.
That shit's going on his gravestone.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
His real name's not even going to be on there.
No. So it's really interesting going back and revisiting the first film for me, because it's just so watered down from what it was or what it had become.
I'm so sorry to cut you off.
Yeah.
But, Nick, did you call him Ash Wednesday earlier?
He did. He did.
Whoops. Yeah,
He
I
did, but I let it slip.
You know what? That's
Okay.
from the movie... This is great.
Okay.
That's from the movie... the Andy Samberg comedy, Pop Star.
God damn it.
His girlfriend in that movie is, I forgot who it's played by, but her name is Ashley Wednesday, and Seal sings a song, Ashley Wednesday.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
Ashley Wednesday. Anyway, that's what I said. I meant Ash Williams.
I knew it.
That movie's great.
That's an opinion.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's great.
But it almost
I
kind of
just got that like 25 minutes later.
I thought about it after I said it, and I'm just like, I'm
is
just
he
not
go-
going to acknowledge
Is he
that.
going to let it slide? No, we're not.
So
But at the time, I
this
didn't know
almost
what it was.
Speaks to Toussaint, what you brought up before, where it's like things in the scope of this franchise aren't necessarily even mentioned in the first movie. Things like the Deadites or
Yeah.
the Necronomicon or
The book looks different.
a bit,
everything
sure,
changes
sure.
Everything
in the
changes.
movie.
Well, I was
Yeah.
just gonna say,
like
this,
from
this
movie
was,
to movie.
Yeah.
This was I don't want to blow you up on the spot here, but this was your first time watching this. Right?
Yeah, it was.
And so sitting there watching it, I caught the part when you were saying towards the end, you're like, oh, this is where it happens, and you thought that's when he was going to get his hand cut
Yeah,
off.
that doesn't happen
The
until the
chainsaw.
second movie.
See,
Yeah.
everything about this movie that people know, including kind of what I'm talking about, like Ash Williams as Ash Williams,
It's sort of conflated with the second one.
none of it fucking happens in this
Yeah.
first movie. It's
Yeah.
crazy. This movie is almost like it doesn't exist in the franchise.
There
as
wasn't
bizarre
supposed
as
to
that
be
is.
be an Ash Williams. There was
Sure.
only ever supposed to be the Evil Dead.
You're right.
Sure. So it's just crazy to go back and watch this movie after having become such a fan of the franchise as a whole.
Also, to answer Alex's question really quick, I just want to point out just how much he milks who he is. Not necessarily this character, but wink, wink, this character. He's even starred in shitty direct-to-whatever horror films
Bubba
called...
Hotep?
Well, no, that's Elvis movie, directed by John Carpenter.
I thought he was in Bubba Hotep.
He is. I'm just saying that that's not what I'm talking about. Okay. I was going to say more in line what I was saying is that he's been in an even shitty movie called My Name is Bruce, where he plays a very Ash-like character fighting demons. So I'm just saying, like, that's how much he panders to this crowd, and not in a, in my opinion, like pathetic way, like Robert Englund as Freddy. I'm sorry, but like he's not starring in rap music videos just to stay, whatever.
Why
I
did
just
you remind
genuinely
me of
think he
that?
has fun.
Speaking of that, Robert Englund came out, was it like a week ago?
Closet?
That would be not that surprising. No,
Surprise, bitches!
he came out and said he's going to play the character again, and I was like, yeah.
In like an animated?
I don't know. You know what? When I see those kind of things, though, from somebody like him, it's just like, it's like the Rolling Stones saying they're having another reunion tour. It's like, okay, guys.
Cool, you did that. Yeah.
The last person to actually play Freddy was Jamie Earl something.
Jackie Earl Haley.
Yeah, who played Haley.
Joel Osment.
Who played Rorschach in the Watchmen film. And I remember...
That would be correct.
I remember...
That movie was a flop.
Yeah, and I remember when he was first announced to be casted for that, and I was like, well, he's got the look for it. I don't hear about that film much.
Horror film retreads have been a huge failure.
Yeah.
That, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake with Jessica Biel, and the Friday the 13th remake, all were huge failures at the box office.
Can I institute a new segment here on Film Tank, which is called the Film Tank Poll of What Nick Should Buy? Every time I go to Target, I see a Blu-ray triple pack of Watchmen, V for Vendetta, and Constantine. Should I buy it? If I get more than one yes, I will buy it.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, I'm more of a fan of, like...
I don't care what your answer or what your reasoning is.
How much does it cost?
I was going to say, it's on
Okay.
sale.
I think it's $15. That's not on sale. So, that's the full price.
I would just pay the money and get the really nice version of V for Vendetta.
Really? So you're saying that that's the only worthy... That's the only one I've
What are
actually
you talking about?
seen.
Constantine is dope.
I was going to say, I feel like I'd like
One
Constantine.
person's opinion.
What the fuck are you
So
talking about?
anyway,
The depiction of the devil
I
in that
have
is
one
awesome.
yes.
Yeah.
I just need to know. Yes or no? You can say no.
Sure.
Yeah, I would.
Okay.
I own two of them, so I would
Well,
say
then
yes.
it's an automatic yes.
It's not really.
So thank
I
you.
Get to make
You're
a
welcome.
Choice.
I hope we have like a theme song we can play
When was the
here.
last time you saw V for Vendetta? It's been a while.
Not since we never talked about it.
We talked about it on the
we
superhero
talk
episode.
about
yeah.
it, but we've never actually done it.
I can
You know,
still do
V
that
for
speech.
Vendetta. I bought 2 Blu-rays the very first day I bought a Blu-ray player, and I bought Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas and V for Vendetta.
Okay.
So it's technically,
One of the first Blu-rays you owned.
yeah. So I have a little nostalgia for it.
I just watched it with Emily. That is one of my favorite films of all time. So.
Okay.
By the way, have you seen Bruce Campbell's profile picture on IMDb? No. It is fantastic.
Wow.
You cannot see
That's
it, but
great.
I think he's
He looks like-
wearing.
That's beautiful.
He looks like he could be a
That
Supreme
is
Court justice.
Absolute.
You know what? I would.
headshot.
To be
I
fair,
would
anybody
totally-
can. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, any male can.
He
Yeah.
also likes beer. So
Well, he
If you
does.
want to know what we're talking about, go look up Bruce Campbell on IMDb.
That's right.
Great headshot.
yes.
So those are my thoughts on
Okay.
the Evil
Hell
Dead.
yeah.
Okay.
T?
My thoughts. I'm actually I'm a modest fan of this franchise. I've only seen Army of Darkness and the first 2 seasons of Ash vs. the Evil Dead, and I really enjoyed watching this for the first time. Like Kenny was talking about how most of the iconic moments that are sort of like cast into the canon of Ash's history do not actually take place in this film, and so in a number of ways it caught me by surprise just because I feel like I've seen enough horror films that I'm able to sort of like guess what the rhythm of a jump scare is going to be. This film like threw me off like multiple times. Like there was not one time that I was actually like correct in that. So I stopped.
By the time you were correct,
Yeah.
you had already been wrong.
Exactly.
3 times.
Exactly.
Before.
So I just like stopped, and it was refreshing, honestly, to like be caught by surprise by something that was so low budget, that was so just like put together on a whim.
Because of the shit that they accidentally did.
Yeah.
Like what you're hearing is them speaking out loud the summoning word, so therefore they basically died or something like that. I don't exactly remember the
Yeah, it's
backstory.
fine.
But Lucy Lawless is the connection there.
Okay, cool.
You've only seen season 1?
I've only seen season 1. I've seen a few episodes of season 2. I'm still watching it right now.
Yeah.
I kind of dropped off because I forgot to, well, not forgot to, but I just didn't have stars when it was airing, so I
Yeah.
just started buying the seasons.
Yeah.
I've only seen through season 2, and I was feeling bad because I thought you had seen all of them. And
Now,
I
if
have
you want to
not
borrow
seen-
season 3, let me know.
I have season
Do you?
3.
Okay.
Yeah, I have it. I just haven't watched it yet.
If you want to borrow season 3,
I've seen the
Tucson.
first. I
I
think
would love that.
I think
I
I've
also
seen
have
the
to
first-
watch those other things that you lent me, and
That's true.
Yeah.
I've seen the first 3 episodes of season 3, and
Yeah.
season 2 is so much better than it. The whole franchise really just progressively gets better and
Very
better.
good at building on its history.
Yes, and I love that no matter how good this movie is, they really got their footing and figured out an identity for this franchise.
It just has this exponential curve where it just like builds, and
They
I
really
love
found their sweet spot and just improved on it. So.
Yeah.
Agreed.
As I'm watching this again, while we're talking, I also love every time the cabin is shot and the moon behind it is just abnormally large.
Yeah,
It's
with the
just-
smoke machine that just sort of like puffs in front of it. Yeah.
Yeah, where it literally becomes like inky black.
Mm-hmm.
the moon is just impossibly big.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Yeah. What scene are you on, Kenny?
I'm on the part where they are locking her in the cellar
Oh, snap.
Yeah, that's a good one.
in the basement. Yeah. Han Solo is currently on top of the door, chaining it shut.
Yeah, I want to talk about how much I hate that fucking guy for a sec.
Han Solo?
Yeah, I don't like him.
That was a good movie.
I thought
Come on.
It's not because it's a great movie. And I'm just like, I don't like him because he was just like a jackass from the jump, and I'm just like,
Did you like Jay Leno?
Exactly what Han Solo is. But
Jay
that's all
Leno
right.
with his corduroy pants and his
I don't like Jay Leno.
He's talking about Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh,
'Cause he
him,
looks like Jay
motherfucker. I hate him. Yeah, I really don't.
Wait.
Jay Leno or Bruce Campbell?
I don't like Ash in this. I think he grows on me. I'm looking. I like how he grows.
I'm actually
in
with
later
you.
installments.
I'm with you big time.
Yeah,
I
when
don't
he
know
when
that
he's
I
just
hate him.
he's just standing there. No, I hate him when he's just standing there. His buddy is getting his ass fucking whooped by a deadite.
Okay.
He's clutching.
Tucson is Emily right now.
He's
in this
clutching
situation.
I know.
his fucking
Ash is a
fireman
fucking-
axe
I hate
like
to
like
be
a
this
fucking
person.
pacifier.
Ash is a fucking pussy.
I hate to
it.
do
Hold
this,
on.
but
Hold the phone.
let's
I-
put a fucking deadite in front of you and let's see. You can't even show up for a movie that you said you were coming to.
If you were getting attacked by a deadite, you bet your ass I would lay into that fucking deadite.
Well, that's very nice of you.
Hold on. Let's back
I
up.
probably wouldn't do the same because I'm like 5 feet tall and I'll just
Well-
get my ass handed to me.
Yeah. Also, too, this is the first time that Bruce Campbell's Ash
Right.
character has come in contact with a Deadite.
So why do you hate him?
What do you mean
gonna
the first time you come in contact with a
What
deadite?
the
You just
fuck?
you just locked the fucking bitch in the cellar.
It's been like
That
an
happened,
hour.
I was going to say, that happened 14 minutes ago.
Yeah.
That's like
Whoa.
telling a person at like their partner's funeral, dude, he died 2 days ago. Get over it.
I'm actually going to back up Tucson on this because as much as I like the movie, Bruce Campbell.
Fuck you, Kenny.
Ash,
Kenny also thought J.K. Simmons' character in Whiplash was an inspirational
Shut
figure.
the fuck up,
so-
Kenny. I'm glad you're back.
he
Thank
wasn't
you.
the inspiration in that movie. He was a jackass.
We've had a real evolution. You need to like listen back to that episode now.
That was a
You really do. I actually
deep
remember
cut.
that. Yeah.
Film Take episode 3.
Yeah.
No. I remember the movie being an inspiration, but it wasn't his character.
Yeah.
That is not what you said on the
That
episode.
is horseshit.
Anyway,
It's not.
continue, Kenny. Continue.
Okay. No. So Ash Williams is actually the part. of
Ashley Wednesday.
Ashley Wednesday is the part of this movie that is a bit of a hang-up for me. Like, it's the only part of this movie that I go back to, and I'm not as into this movie as I am the rest of the franchise because you get to learn what Ashley Wednesday is as a character, and he's just such a bitch in this movie. Like, he really is. Look, all the other characters are experiencing deadites for the first time, and they handle it fine. Like
They all die.
I meant Han Solo.
Okay.
Is what I meant by
Also dead.
He just
but
chilled on a couch.
Before he dies, he does go nuts on the one woman and beats the shit out of her with the
so
axe.
you condone beating women.
Kenny, so we were talking about this before you came in for our viewing. When they go into the cellar for the first time, I was talking about, I was like, it's really weird to see Ash like this, because in Ash versus the Evil Dead, he's kind of like recollecting like what his heyday was, and I feel like
This was not his heyday.
no, this wasn't his heyday. But the thing about this is that it makes it even all the more tragic, because I think because of what happened to him, he sort of regressed into this like this arrested development where he's still stuck in what he thinks is this glossed over like halcyon period of his life where he was just having sex with a ton of women and just like playing football and doing things, because things were so much simpler back then that it just looks incredible.
Not
like,
to mention
like him being incredible with that fucking stupid mullet. It looks incredible compared to where he is now in his life.
Not to mention also that in this movie, for example, he's giving his girlfriend a gift and jewelry, and
he's a totally different person,
right? And also, what I think is that after you come in contact with these kind of creatures, like you just said, you regress, because it's not even just the fact that, okay, life is meaningless, so therefore I shouldn't give a fuck. But it's like, I'll go further back, because I was wasting my effort and my time on trying to be a quote-unquote nice person.
Right.
So therefore, I will just be if Deadites are allowed to be the quote-unquote base level of evil, then therefore I can just be
the base level of myself.
Of humanity, so to speak. Which is like, not to say that Ash was ever an evil person, because he's not. But an idiot, sexist, racist, and the most debasing qualities of a short-sighted person. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think we do see that on display here in Drips, because I mean him holding the axe while his friends are being murdered, like, that's kind of an Ash thing to do. Well, in a different way. Like, obviously, the more he grows into the character of, what we know as Ash, he only does that because it looks cool, and he thinks it gives him some realm of authority. He doesn't do that to be a hero.
Yeah.
So I feel like him, like, literally unable to confront what's happening in front of him is actually a pretty telling detail where that's, like, it will be inverted in future installments.
I suppose he really is just a buffoon in this version of Ash Williams.
He's
Because
just much of a
Buffoon
buffoon.
has never done this before.
Sure.
And lately later he'll be a buffoon
he just
who
becomes
does
who's an old hand at this.
and therefore he'll never change. He just gets better at this.
A sassier, funnier version of this. Okay, you sold me on that.
Yeah, okay.
I get.
That's fine.
So, all that being
We are
said,
I just didn't like him
agreement.
because he's wearing a denim shirt with corduroy pants. Really,
we are in agreement, and that is rather silly. We haven't spent much time talking about the tree rape. So
let's
think
talk about it.
We should go back to that because
But you know what? You're barking up the wrong tree, because I think it's... oh, boy. What did I do?
Buckle up. Here we go. Here we go.
So, actually, what's interesting about that scene is that which I've only seen this film once. I would definitely feel like is not like I would say the most controversial part of this film.
Oh, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's like the lid lifter for this film. So
Yeah, it's true. It's the first major happenstance of it.
And it
Which is interesting.
Quite
Nothing...
a tone setter.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't kind of really continue.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that that's how the
It's a
Evil
very...
Dead force forces its way into the story.
It's very out of place.
It is.
Whether you've seen the
very-
entire franchise, or I think even none of it. Like,
No,
when
it
you've seen the whole
is-
movie, it makes kind of little sense as to
But
why.
here's the thing: you were telling me that there was a tree rape,
That's true.
and I was like, okay, I will.
But you still didn't contextualize it the way it happened. did
That's
you?
true.
Yeah.
And when
That's what's great
when
about it.
she's getting grabbed by the branches and it's twirling its way around her leg.
You're like,
I
oh,
was
that's
just-
the tree rape.
yes.
Yeah,
and
no.
then the big branch forces its way right into her
I
vagina.
purposefully
and boy,
said it because I genuinely thought you'd go the train of thought that I would have too. Like, oh, okay, it poltergeists her. It pulls her this way and that way. But
No.
nope, it is very.
Went right for it.
yeah. And that is. Boy, that is I mean, that's where probably the NC-17 rating really
I'm sure that was part of
got
it.
That
brought in,
moment-
but damn.
That moment struck me as a particularly adolescent indulgence of its time, and that doesn't make it okay, but it's very much it feels like the mark of a much more immature Sam Raimi. I haven't seen anything quite like that in any of his later films that I've seen.
Yeah, you don't see it in Spider-Man.
No, you don't see it in
Mary Jane's
Army
forcing
of
off the oak
Darkness
in the forest.
or Ash versus the Evil Dead. So I think that I can take a you can take a mulligan on that. It's fine.
Somebody explain to me, because I'm a little confused in how it even fits into the context.
It
of
really
the
doesn't.
movie.
That's why I'm
No,
saying it's
because
just
these
it's a
spirits
weird.
are
I was gonna
looking
say,
for a human
There's
that-
no real reason for the trees to be possessed
Sure.
by the Deadites who possess humans. Like it's
And
very.
I don't believe it. The franchise never revisits
No.
anything like this.
Nope.
So
I think genuinely what the reason why it was included, as far as like why they would even think to do it in the first place,
Yeah.
is because put aside the moral implication of performing a scene like that,
Supernatural
but I was
sexual
going to
violence,
say
yeah.
is that the effects is very fun and interesting as far as to have those trees be actually molded to do things that we are not familiar with trees to do. I
am the Lorax. I speak for the trees.
Oh boy.
Well, it is interesting that all we see of the Evil Dead, or Deadites as they are eventually known as, really it all starts in the forest and in the trees and it's just working its way through. So it does kind of make sense that
Yeah.
just literally forces its
it
way
makes
into
sense.
the humans.
It makes sense for a movie that stands by itself and has no sequels, no TV show. And I say it makes sense. It's still out of place, but it's doable, whatever. But the more you add another installment to these things, the more it just locks down what it's about, which is not much, but Deadites and the Evil Dead in general. The more that scene, not most, but I feel like a lot of people forget that scene exists. If you haven't seen it in a while, it's very easy to forget that there is an out. Even though it sounds horrifying, because it is, it's just so bizarre and so out of place that it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. If you're not thinking about like every moment of this franchise,
Okay.
so
Yeah.
I also thought it was interesting that the movie sort of, I was reading it broke in England before it gained any sort of traction here, really, and just some of the censorship stuff. I guess they cut out a lot of the shit, like the ankle stabbing with the pencil and the gouging of the eyes and all that sort of stuff. I don't really know. You guys were talking earlier about the rating that it got. What was it?
NC-17, yeah.
What exactly does that mean? 'Cause I
It
don't
means basically if it's harder than R, because R means that you're.
I'm sorry. I just thought about
like-
I just thought about the hard R.
Oh, like in the
Yeah,
N-word?
yeah.
Getting back to real life.
And R means that in the theater, because that's the thing, ratings only apply to the theater, right? Like a movie on disc, the rating doesn't mean anything other than just general content, whatever. So ratings were created for the theater. So therefore, what R means is that anyone under 17 can watch the movie if somebody older than 17 brings you. NC-17 means nobody under 17 is allowed in the theater.
So, also
Theoretically.
too, NC-17 films.
It literally stands for no children under 17.
Basically, it is like the scarlet letter for a film, because if a film gets an NC-17 rating, it's basically
You're
not
losing.
able to be shown in the theater because films don't want to show it.
Yes.
Because they have to have somebody at the door checking IDs.
Yes. Theaters.
It's like
in
the
this-
AO rating for the SRB.
Pretty much. And I would say in this day and age, NC-17 is more of a killer than it was back then. Because back then, movie theaters were the only way to watch a movie. Whereas here, when you have so many options as far as like streaming, on-demand, disc, whatever, you can basically, if you're going to want to be an NC-17, you could just be an unrated movie. Like, don't put it to the MPAA if you're not going to go to a theater. But if you're going to go to a theater and you're going to get an NC-17, it's going to be a pointless endeavor because no theater is actually going to
Which
carry
there
it.
have been, over time, there have been hundreds of films that have initially sent their film into the MPAA, had NC-17 given back to them, and they have either contested or they've changed their film because basically it's a death sentence going to the theater with an NC-17 rating.
And all you try to do is whittle it down, and now that we live in a golden age of, disc stuff, we get to basically have our cake and eat it too, because it gets to go to theater because they chopped it down, and then it comes to disc, and we get to see the quote-unquote
unrated version.
Unrated, or some cases
So
NC-17
our ratings,
version.
are they across the board? Like, is that like an international
It's a US.
thing?
It's a US thing, yeah.
So do you think the fact that it maybe gained some traction abroad before coming here, do you think that sort of shit where it was like censored heavily in England before coming here, does that help
The funny
with-
thing about that is that Europe is usually much more down with that kind of
Well,
stuff.
they're much more down with that with sex.
With sex, yes.
Yes.
Other things too, though.
I'm not saying they're not down with that, but I'm just saying if you take it into a whole, sex is a go over overseas and whatnot.
I would say more extreme
violence
events
is
happening.
still though.
Yeah, but foreign filmmakers don't make films with violence like American filmmakers do.
I don't know. We're in the I'm just saying in the 70s, giallos became a big thing, and that was way more bloody than any horror film. In fact, Carpenter was mostly inspired by Italian giallos. So I'm not here to say that they're leading the forefront. I mean, right now we even see a new trend that also highlights the old trends, which is right now France is at the forefront of gore right now, because what we have now is called a French horror. No, I can't remember what they're calling it. They're calling it the French, raw wave or something like that. Or in the last 3 years or so, maybe 5 years, France has released some of the most disgusting movies ever released.
Name some.
The most recent one was Raw.
Oh yeah.
okay.
Fuck yeah.
Which was all about cannibalism and whatnot, which is actually fantastic.
That was one of your favorite films from last year,
It was,
right?
yes.
Yep.
And that's the most recent one I can think of. Even movies that go back a little bit further than that, but maybe was a precursor to, is like Martyrs, which is one of the most disgusting movies I've seen. I mean, there's a literal character.
Tucson just got hard.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
There's a character in that movie, and I genuinely recommend it. Even if you don't like violence, there's much more to it than just its gore. But it is also a movie where, for the last 20 or 30 minutes, one of the main characters only exists for the last half hour as a flayed person.
Flayed man.
Their skin is completely cut off.
Wow.
And they only exist in the last whatever as a bloody, you know that what do you call it, that famous, not famous, but that popular Body Works.
Yeah.
At the it came to.
I love that
Is that
exhibit.
Museum
the
of Science
exhibit.
and Industry?
Yes, but it also toured.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yep.
It was like a character was brought to life
No.
from there with actual blood.
I think it's actually the Field Museum, but
Was it
that's
Field
okay.
Man? But
that's
okay.
They
But
had
Body
that in,
Works, the
in
exhibit.
Hellraiser too.
Yeah. But it's slightly more. I mean, this is far as
Right, right.
This
This
came
is
out
more
in
modern,
20,
right.
You're
Right.
saying other horror franchises is getting Kenny hard
No, I
too.
was saying, no, I just got hard.
You should watch It is foreign language, as long as you don't mind that. It is very good. It's got one of the best final scenes ever.
Oh,
Just
Like ever in any film?
in
or
my opinion, yes. It is very loaded.
that's a strong claim coming from Nick Cheney.
Is it?
You've seen a lot of shit.
I mean, it's different. I'm assuming. Is it better than the final scene in Revenge from this year?
The final scene, yeah. I mean, the final scene in Revenge is technically her walking around the pool.
You ought to watch Revenge, Kenny.
Just to be, like,
you will love that
pedantic
shit.
about it.
Yeah.
Like, the final act of Revenge is very good in general.
Yeah.
But I'm talking the 2 minutes before it cuts to credits.
I guess I was more
Literally-
going for the climactic final 20
I'm talking
minutes.
the last 2 minutes before
Okay.
it cuts to credits elevates that movie. Like, it was good, and then all of a sudden something... Basically, two people have a line of dialogue that just completely recontextualizes the whole thing.
It went the opposite way of Hold the Dark.
That is correct. That is correct.
If you haven't seen Hold the Dark on Netflix, don't. It's not great.
I agree.
Toussaint is correct, though. You should watch Revenge, Kenny. That is a very good film.
On my list, along with Triangle. Was
Yeah,
it?
Triangle.
That what you told me to watch?
If you have time, just saying, if you do, when we do our Halloween episode, if you have time, we should watch Triangle. Or
I would love to watch it again.
That's fine.
just saying, yeah,
Or
if you're
Revenge.
here.
I haven't watched
Or
it since we
Revenge.
watched
I mean,
it
if you
together,
guys
Nick.
want to watch that again, I'd watch it.
No, we could watch either.
So-
I think Revenge is only because it's much more fresh in my mind.
That's true. But
But
I'd
Triangle
watch
is
it.
good, too.
Either one.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else before we go to ratings? Anybody
No.
wants to pass around?
Nope. I've said my piece.
Okay. Well, since you said that, Toussaint, why don't you start us off?
Okay. I'll give this a 4 out of 5. Because I really did enjoy this. I think that it lays a very firm groundwork for what will eventually become a sterling horror comedy series in a way that is so unconventional that I have to respect it. And I think that it's just definitely a film that I will see myself returning to and eventually like moving on to like the next installment and maybe just like rewatching the entire franchise just because hot damn it just keeps on getting better and better, and this was fucking awesome. So yeah.
Oh, before I forget, has anybody seen the remake from 2013?
The
No, I have
Fede
not.
Alvarez movie, no. But
No?
I've been meaning to. And we're finally going to get, for the very first time, they're releasing the uncut version of it, which is not to say that it adds, like, violent... I mean, it does add that. But, like, for the longest time, like, from the moment that movie was released in theaters, Fede Alvarez has basically been adamant that the movie you saw in the theaters was not his original version. And it's always been available in region others than Region 1 market. But this fall, there will be a North American release of the... so I'm finally going to check it out.
Very much like to see that because
Yeah.
I saw the original, the version that's available
Yeah.
freely, and I thought it was very good.
Yep.
I've talked to many people that did not agree with me on that, but
I
I
mean,
thought
taking on its own merits.
it was legitimately fucking scary. Like it scared the shit out of. I was watching it with my wife and my dog, who immediately ran away.
Jackson.
My wife, Jenny's normally
My wife.
My wife.
My wife.
She will watch horror movies, and she will stomach them. She's not a fan,
Yeah.
and she will kind of hide away during certain parts. But she did not finish watching this movie. It was actually a really fucking good, scary movie. So,
Did you see, really quickly,
Yeah.
his second film, Don't Breathe?
yes,
Did you like that at all?
They shot money.
I did very much.
I was a fan of that
What
movie.
was her name?
Jane Levy.
Jane Levy, because
Yeah.
she was in
Yeah.
Evil Dead. Yeah,
She's great.
So yes, the remake was really good. I also love how everybody's this sort of the whole everything stays all in the family with this whole franchise. I love that
Yeah.
Raimi was a producer and even a writer on the remake.
Yeah.
And he produced or he directed the very first episode of Ash vs. Evil Dead.
Well, and it's Ted Raimi that basically controlled that show.
Oh.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
I love that it's all everybody. It's like it's never gone bad for anybody. It's never really gone south. It's fantastic.
Yeah, still going.
Anyway, I wanted to throw that out there before I
Yeah.
forgot about it. So
You gave your rating, right?
Yep.
So, Kenny, what are your final thoughts?
oh boy, I can't be as warm on this movie as I would like to be, only because. Like I don't want to be that asshole to go giving perfect scores to the rest of all of the franchise. I really, really, really like the rest of it. So I can't go giving this a perfect score because I have some issues with it.
There's something better
Sure.
over the horizon. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess in a vacuum, if I sort of take it for itself, like, I probably lean a little bit more towards like a 4 out of 5, but because I have to take away for some of the issues I have, which aren't even really issues, they're just I'll knock a few points off here and there. I'd probably give this about a 3 out of 5, to be honest.
That's fair.
And it's only because the joy of watching it has been removed just a little bit, going back.
Especially
and
because you got
revisiting.
more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It just speaks to how strong the rest of it is. So.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, I was a fan of this. I think this is very fun horror, which I am now very much on board for, which hasn't always been the case in my life. But at this point,
My life.
my wife. Oh God, Borat! We should do an episode on that someday. That'd be fun.
Should we?
You know what
Yes.
Michael Myers like to say?
What?
My knife.
Are you talking about my wife as an axe murderer or something?
No, I was just... First of all, that's called So You Married an Ex-Murderer.
Yeah.
Second of all, I was just making a play on the rhyming scheme of my wife, my life, and my knife.
Okay, I know.
Do you?
Yeah. I did.
Tucson's having a really rough night.
Actually,
This
no,
is
I'm
why
not.
back.
I'm having a pretty good night.
Are you?
Yeah.
This is why I'm
Good.
back.
I'm
Yeah.
glad to hear that.
Yeah.
He's thinking he's back.
Just tonight.
Just tonight.
I'm not dealing with this every
People keep
episode.
asking me if I'm back. I'm not back. I don't know why people keep asking me that.
Sounded Jewish there. That was weird.
My Sammy Bagel Jr.
Please don't do that again.
People keep asking me if I'm back. It doesn't make any sense. I do one movie.
Oh,
I love it every time he brings that character back.
it's great. That was one of Edward Norton's best roles in the last decade.
It really was, which is not
Not
great.
good.
He's Brad.
So, I actually give this 3.5 out of 5, as I think this is a quite delightful film, especially for its time. All of the effects through here and a lot of the camera angles used in the action sequences are fabulous. And also, too, the story here is actually pretty inconsequential to the finale, as this is just a fun, zombie-esque type film, and I just quite enjoyed it for what it was. And also, too, as I've said time and time again, a film that can keep a runtime very low and still deliver its product that earns extra points usually for me. So 3.5 out of 5 for the original Evil Dead.
Yeah, I got to admit, I give it a 4.5 out of 5. It's one of my favorite horror films of all time, and I concede to the fact that Ash becomes a better character in the other installments, but where it all began is just one of the best self-contained horror films of all time, and the way it came when it did, and I wouldn't say influence, because there have been other films before and after that probably had a bigger effect on the horror market at large, but the way it came about when it did, coming after a run of grindhouse-esque pictures just making a killing, proportionally speaking, at the box office in their theaters, Sam Raimi just completely upped the ante, and after like a decade of making those kind of movies, not him, but after churning out those kind of movies out of this indie system, he showed how much you could actually do with that format and kind of schooled them all, and I just absolutely love it. And you mentioned the plot as inconsequential, which is completely true, and that's actually why I think it works. Like, it just keeps moving forward, and yet it never is meaningless, so to speak. So I give it 4.5 out of 5. I think this is genuinely one of the spookiest films I've ever seen. Like, I don't want to call it scariest to somehow basically tout it as something that, like, has me, like, you know, my heart racing, which maybe the first time I watched it, I had no idea when the jump scares were and whatnot. That's understandable. But in general, the effects and the scares here are still tangible. I mean, they still work. You know, even when you know when the cellar door is going to fly open or when the Deadite is going to kind of change their makeup after going back into the cellar and coming right back up, it's still a chilling effect, and it always works and lands for me.
I am about to bump Alex's score up about half a point here. Just wait for it.
This scene where he hits her with the axe and she just
that's so great.
just deflates like
Oh my god, that scene fucking rocks.
Yeah, and that's Evil Dead 2 in a nutshell. Like, it is...
See, I want to watch it right now, so that's great.
I do, too.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
Up a half point.
Yeah.
I give it 4.5 out of 5. I basically think that I'm with both you and Kenny in the sense that, like, the franchise does get better than this, but, like, as the only movie, or the only installment and the only entry that's not beholden to any other property, this just fucking rocks. So, I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
4.5 out of 5.
Yeah.
And no, I'm as someone who hasn't seen any of the other entries, I'm totally in agreement from where you're coming from, Nicholas, is that that this is just doing a really nice job to lay the groundwork for this just being a regular film. I am actually interested to find out when Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell decided to make the second one, and if it like just happened to come about, or if Sam Raimi didn't even consider it until Bruce Campbell said, "Hey, my career is going nowhere. Do you want to make another Evil Dead film?" Like, I'm interested to find out how the second film completely started, because it is interesting in this day and age that we live in 2018, where basically most sequels are greenlit before the film even
I'm gonna
debuts.
go out on a limb while Nick is looking and say it happened pretty quick, because
There's 6 years in between the first and the second.
But you also remember, though, that this one was put together, I think technically released in 81, but didn't really go that large in America for a couple of years.
Okay.
I think IMDb even has it listed as 83, maybe?
IMDb had it as 81 when I looked at it earlier.
Did it? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I guess I'm intrigued because I want to know how much time passed before they
So,
decided to go to a sequel,
Let
or if it was
me
always a plan.
break that down for you really quick.
Okay.
This came out in 81. Sam Raimi made at least 2 more films after this, just randomly, that were both flops for the most part. And in 1987, they set out to make Evil Dead 2. And Wikipedia is actually being smart for a change. And I want to say that not description, but the descriptor of Evil Dead 2 is pitch perfect, which is that they set out to make what they called a parody sequel, and that's exactly what Evil Dead 2 is. It is both a continuation, but also a revision in support of upping the insanity.
It is interesting that you mentioned that Sam Raimi's next 2 films were flops, because I feel like he had to go back to this to get his name back.
Really, that actually does really prove your point.
But he didn't do it in a way of like, Friday the 13th part whatever, where it's like, oh, let's just resurrect it. Like, he actually was like, you know what, if we're going to do this, then I don't care what I did in the first film.
Which is actually pretty ballsy.
Right. We just need to make a better movie, or better version of the first film. And he set out and did that.
And considering how successful this was, just sort of given the tone that it was setting, like, that's pretty ballsy to go and just, like, make a spoof, like a parody of it to make a sequel.
I personally wish more franchises were that kind of... I mean, we live in the MCU universe right now where, like, it has to be threaded through whatever, but if more directors kind of took this, like, free-for-all, like, you know what, the second film, I don't like that I did this, so therefore I'm going to make another continuity version. And I'm not saying I want that for every property or anything like that, but if it won't work, and therefore the only way to make a sequel, be good is to basically throw out certain ideas, like, why wouldn't you do that?
I know you would. I know you love that.
What's that?
Because of the Magic Mike.
Yeah!
Yes.
It's exactly like that. Evil Dead 2 is the Magic Mike XXL of the Evil Dead franchise.
You heard it here, folks. You heard it here first, folks.
No, but actually, because I was trying to think of franchises that had done that, and that was
the
first one
Magic
that came to
Mike
mind.
XXL. It is the Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again.
Oh, God.
I'm only half joking.
You saw that, right?
I did.
Yeah, okay.
And it was actually fun, and I hate the first movie.
What's the name of the Triple X sequel?
Oh, it is that too! It is Return of Xander Cage.
It's
Yeah.
not. Technically, there's another XXX film in
Yeah, with
there
Ice Cube.
with Ice Cube
Yeah,
called
that's all I
State
was-
of the Union.
Fuck that.
Yeah.
But even though Ice Cube does show up and he randomly, what is it? What's his name? Vin Diesel randomly says something like, "I always knew you were a brother," or something like it makes no sense.
I think he was just still in Fast and Furious mode.
No, he definitely is throughout that whole movie.
Yeah.
Like that whole movie is
Family.
watching. No, that whole movie is watching a grown man try not to say we're family. Like that is every line is him.
Well,
Nope.
Nope.
that whole first act of that film is designed around him trying to get his coat back, which is amazing.
The things I do for my country.
Yeah, he's got to get his big fucking fur coat back.
And then he brings Brazilian kids cable. No, that's a genuine thing.
Okay.
Boy.
That's
Yeah.
a great movie.
That's an opinion. So, if you out there have any thoughts on the original Evil Dead or the rest of that universe, always feel free to send them on to us at filmtankshow@gmail.com. Coming up next week, myself, Nick, and maybe Toussaint, and our friend Anna will be talking about the new anti-hero, superhero film Venom, which has already got horrible reviews, which is not that surprising. The CGI looks terrible. So we'll be talking about that on episode 170 coming up next week. Thank you very much to Kenny Marcellus for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, anytime.
Kenny, the OG.
OG.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah,
I can't believe it's been 169 episodes.
that's right.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's
How many was I on, like, originally in the original run?
25
One.
to 30.
Guess I've been busy.
Yeah, we have, actually.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, only like 60 of them are on the internet because somebody doesn't edit them, but that's okay.
Fuck.
No, but literally, there are it sneaks up on me because I'm like, oh, I just did like 4 of them, and I'm like, oh, I've still got 7 in the queue. This is
Yeah.
great.
It's okay.
People are listening going, where are all these episodes?
We don't have any listeners, so that's fine.
They age like wine.
Our listeners?
No, I mean our episodes. They age like wine.
Oh, okay.
They take a little time to edit and to stew, and then
Put them in the barrel.
yeah.
Sure. I take much less time to edit our episodes than I did when Kenny was on our show, so that's okay. I also have a full-time job now,
Yeah,
so
I know. Yeah.
that takes away.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first year we did this, we were all in the state of, like, I didn't have a full-time job. You know, you didn't. Toussaint, you were still...
Floating around.
Yeah, I mean, we were all whatever. And
Yeah.
So it was like... It was a good way to start it. Because otherwise, I
Sure.
don't think it ever would have gotten off the ground.
No, it still hasn't, but that's okay.
Yeah. This is for us and for the listeners.
That is true. And you know what? I'll say this. We have a small amount of listeners, but we do have a dedicated listening base, for
Yeah.
sure.
We do.
Yeah. Thank you
gotta-
so much.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Again, thank you, Kenny, for joining us, and we'll hope to see you in a couple episodes talking about some other Halloween-type things.
Cool, I'll be here.
Alrighty. Also, as always, thank you to Toussaint Egan, Nick Cheney, and from myself, Alex Diekman, and these 3 guys. Thank you very much for catching up with us here on Film Tank. We'll be joining you next time.